if you're speaking on stage, you really need to get that engagement up, because no one owes you a thing. No one owes you their time to listen to you.
Hej ljudi, dobrodošli na moj kanal. Ja sam Tomislav Pancirov i u današnjem videu imam tu Petera Hopwooda. On je inače neovisni trener za TEDx speakere, radio je u 32 zemlje, živio u 7 zemalja i sada radi u Hrvatskoj i danas će nam ispričati kako se pripremiti za prezentaciju, koje konkretne savjete možete naučiti od njega i na koji način možete prenijeti emociju svojoj publici. So Peter, welcome to my channel.
Thanks so much. I'm glad we managed to do this. We've been trying to do this for a while, and I'm glad we've managed to do this finally.
Yeah, so I introduced you a bit, but maybe you can say a couple of words about yourself.
Yeah, very simply, I'm a speaker coach, a TEDx coach, a pitch coach, and a global MC. So those 4 areas, that's really what I do. So I help people to share their stories with more impact, show up better online, virtual meetings, podcasts, sound better, and get people really to understand their messages. People who are listening to them understand their messages with more impact.
And what is the most important part about getting your story to the viewer?
Good question, because there's lots of different elements which actually form the answer to that question. But okay, if we start with a couple of those things, in terms of the story, in terms of getting your story out, the impression someone has of you at the beginning is so important, and getting that right, or getting it as close as the truth as possible, is really beneficial. So there's a few things we can do to start off with. So even before you've started to present or share your message in public, the number one thing at the beginning is to think to yourself, why am I doing this? What is the purpose what is the purpose of what I'm doing? What do I want people listening to me? What do I want them to feel? What do I want them to think about me or my message? What's the value I'm actually sharing? So all those things, you think about those things, and it takes the focus off you, and normally your anxiety will go down as well. But thinking about, again, why you're doing what you're doing, what's the intention, what's the purpose? Once you've got that almost crystallized, once you know what that is, everything you do and say is almost guided by that. Okay, so having a goal, having an objective, having something that you know you're going towards, why you're doing what you're doing, is the first thing. Without that, how can you expect anyone else to understand? So you do that first of all. Another thing you can do is think about how you want to be perceived. All right. So think to yourself, okay, how do I want the people looking at me through the camera, for example, through this camera now, for example, how do I want people to perceive me? I would say knowledgeable, somebody who's got credibility, somebody who's kind of in control of their body, of how they sound, has value to share. So all those things, thinking about those ideas and notions, that makes you feel that, and that actually comes across how you speak, in your voice, how you sound, and also your body as well. So remember, our body and our voice, those are the 2 areas which influence us, other people, the most. Even more, I would say, the voice. How we sound is more influential than what we look like, what we're dressed in, our hairstyle, even sometimes what we say, even the content of what we're sharing.
Because we know how we want them to perceive that.
Absolutely,
right?
And also the sounds are all connected with emotions. All right. So if you think of any kind of sounds, if I ask you, think about when you were 15, what were you listening to
that music gets you,
and that music, you remember what you were doing, you remember the feeling, you remember the emotion. Right. It's the same thing, for example, at a conference. Just before a conference begins, you've got music going on in the background. maybe something kind of poppy, maybe something with the beats, with rhythm. It gets you going. It makes you feel like there's something happening. Something is about to begin. You watch a TV show or listen to a podcast. At the beginning, you've got a theme tune, you've got an intro. All these things make us feel something. And it's the same with the voice. Our voice makes other people feel something. And the trick is, or not really a trick, but just being aware of how you sound will help you in the long run sound better.
And how can people watching this actually train their voice in a way or prepare for a big presentation? Okay,
so the first thing is really to understand that we don't have to actually change our voice too much, because the voices we were given by God, we can't really change them. But what we've got, we can use it. We can use our voices in slightly different ways. So there's, for example, there's pace, there's pitch, there's tone, there's melody, and there's volume. Those 5 things, thinking about those 5 things, being aware of how you sound, will help you move forward. So recording yourself, for example, just using your mobile phone, recording a few things you're saying with your presentation, listening back to that. You'll hear things maybe you haven't heard before, you don't realize. Because remember, in our heads, when we hear our voice in our heads, it's a lot deeper than in fact actually how it sounds. All right. So when we listen to ourselves back on YouTube or on a podcast, or just listen to ourselves on our mobiles, probably will sound slightly higher.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people can't hear themselves.
Exactly. So just listening to yourself, and you'll identify areas where you say to yourself, well, actually that sounds good, or actually it doesn't sound as bad as I thought, because often we don't want to listen to ourselves or look at ourselves back on TV or YouTube or on a podcast, let's say. So the more you listen to yourself, sounds strange, but the more you do that, the more you'll be able to identify areas where you can improve. Listen to others. Really start to listen to other people who sound good.
And also presenting.
That present on YouTube, a TEDx speaker, people on TV who are professionals. Listen to them. Listen to why is it they sound good.
And how you feel at that moment.
And how you're feeling about the voice and the sounds and the way they say things. So paralinguistics, for example, really interesting area of study in terms of how we say things. So not so much like a sentence. It's not what we say, it's how we say it. So we can introduce lots of other things. For example, sarcasm or excitement or feeling scared, fearful. All these emotions can come through the way we say something. So it's really important to understand that. And another big area is, for example, you're preparing for your presentation. You've got your script, for example. You've got the words written out. You've practiced. You know more or less what you're going to say in the different chunks of your presentation. Think about this. Each chunk, each section, label it with an emotion. So what is it you want your audience to feel when you talk about that section?
It's sort of a chapter.
Yeah, like a chapter of a story. Do you want them to feel excited? Do you want them to feel curious? Do you want them to feel, there's something is not right here? Do you want them to feel like this is something that is really inspiring or motivating? So simply label the chunks, sections of your presentation, and then when you say that, when you actually share those messages, people are going to feel that. They're going to feel what you feel. So remember, how you feel on stage or on a Zoom call, online, people can feel it. So they feel it through what they see. So your micro expressions or your body language. They can hear it through your voice. So they can hear that if your breathing's not good or your anxiety's higher, often that will affect your breathing, a higher pitch, and also quicker. If you speak quicker, often that's a sign of anxiety.
What do you do in this situation? An example, I have a presentation and I start speaking really quick because I'm nervous. At that moment on the stage, what should I do?
Okay, you need to say to yourself, okay, stop. The reason why you're speaking quickly is because you're nervous and anxiety is raising, but you're not getting enough air inside you. There's not enough air coming in. So you need to stop. You need air to come in. So you need to you can pause. So just after one of the sentences, imagine full stop, pause. What that will do, that will give you enough time to have a little bit of air coming in. When that air comes inside, it kind of pings up to your brain, tells you kind of the logic area of your brain and tells you, look, hey, stop. It's going to be okay. I'm going to be fine. I can think with a little bit more clarity. And then your breathing starts to, your pulse starts to go down slowly, and the more you calm down and come across as somebody who's calmed down, the more people will see that you're calmer. They will feel this, how you're feeling, and then slowly it will go down. It's not listen. This is not easy. In an ideal situation, that's what happens. But it's not easy to do that. But just remember, if you're calm, the more calmer you are, and how do you become calm? Through your breathing. If you can breathe calmly, everything else comes across as, you come across as confident, with more credibility, more in control. It's about being in control. So in control of what you say it, how you sound, and your body. Think about this. Think about, okay, royalty and let's say a clown or a rock star. Okay, rock star or a clown, in terms of their body movement, when I say that to you, what comes to mind?
Kind of a lot of movement.
A lot of movement.
Uncontrolled.
Lots of
quirky
things. Energy. Okay. Think about royalty, or let's say top CEOs, or people who are noble, for example, top politicians, top presidents around the world. Think about their movement. What comes to mind? The Queen.
No movement at all. Almost.
So it's almost like they're like
totally controlled.
Totally controlled.
You know, with poise and control.
Absolutely. So one of the great tips I give to people that are presenting, keynote speakers, even TEDx speakers, the first couple of minutes, or even 2 minutes, let's say, if you can show that you're really still and calm at the beginning, that tells your audience that you're in control.
That's really interesting, because you mentioned the pace earlier and the energy. So your advice is to be still at the beginning, but tell me how to think about the energy that you have in yourself coming onto the stage, and how to kind of set this pace. Should they think about it up front and write it down with those emotions, how they want the pace to be, so kind of think about it? Or should they just come and feel what's happening with the audience?
Okay, I would say the first thing, if we go back to the ideas we were talking about earlier on, label your emotions with those sections, all right? But remember, we have to be engaged. And if your audience isn't engaged, and that's even more so, we can talk about it later, but even more so on the screen, on Zoom, on a virtual call or something virtual, really important to raise that engagement. But if you're speaking on stage, you really need to get that engagement up, because no one owes you a thing. No one owes you their time to listen to you. You have to earn that time, and you have to earn the respect, and you have to earn the engagement. How do you do it? One way of doing that is with that energy. So when I say to you energy, or when I say to people listening to this, you know, what is energy in terms of presenting? Most people would probably come up with the idea of high energy, really using loud. Your body, loud, smiley, which we see on a lot of YouTube videos, for example. But there's another type of energy which is really important and really effective, and that's focused energy. So it's knowing the value of what you want to say, knowing how it's going to make people feel, And you do that through two ways. Main two ways are through how you're looking when you look at somebody with the eye contact, and also the voice. So you can be just as effective with focused energy, even more effective with focused energy than if you came out jumping on the stage.
Or, yeah.
That's it. So it's so interesting because the role of an MC. So a lot of actually, I've just come from a conference right now, Shift Money in Zagreb, and I see a lot of MCs at a lot of other conferences, and there are so many that come out and they're full of energy, and that's good. It's good to have energy, but it's not always focused energy, because what an audience really wants, they want value. They don't want to be just told they have to feel, things are going to be fantastic and everything's great.
It's fake.
Absolutely, and we can tell that straight away. It's something, as humans, we have that in us, that radar. We can tell when somebody's being too pompous or fake, or it's just fake energy. So my advice would be focused on that focused energy, know the value of what you want to share, use your voice in a way that's going to make people feel that, and slow down. So just by slowing down, again, gives the impression, again, you might not be feeling that, you might be feeling really nervous and anxiety's high, or it's even growing.
But you need to train this.
But absolutely, the more you do it, the more it becomes more natural for you. But just by slowing down, there are so many things that happen just by slowing down. So I'm slowing down now, and what's happening now with my voice? How's the tone of my voice? How would you say is the pitch of my voice? It's getting deeper, it's going down. So just when you slow down,
and kind of draws me in.
Great, absolutely. What's happening? This is
Yeah.
curious. So just by slowing down, your voice will go down, becomes more deeper. And when it becomes more deeper, we just associate that with more credibility, more calmness, being more in control. All right. So when you slow down, that's what happens. Another thing to remember is the volume. So the volume of your voice, again, is something that will determine how people will perceive you in terms of your credibility and in terms of your knowledge. Again, if I was to talk, my voice is slightly down and out. It's slightly not as loud, and there's a very big difference between me talking like this and explaining what I have to explain to you today in this interview, than if I just talked like this. Absolutely. So the idea is speaking slightly louder. It's not actually speaking loud. It's actually loud together with melody. You put loudness and melody together, you go towards charisma. All right, because you have more intonation, and if I add the eye contact there as well, where I'm kind of, so when I look at you and I speak to you, I'm almost saying to you, you're my target, you're where I want all this to go, and I want you to, absolutely, you're important, and I want you to listen to this. This is for you. Okay, in so many interviews, and I'm sure many people have seen them as well, in so many interviews, we see people not looking at the person interviewing them. So for example, now if I was to look a lot like this, and I was to maybe look at here, for example, I'm thinking, and we do that when we think, often we look down to the left, down to the right, for example, and I wasn't looking at you like I am now, and I'm thinking, and I'm giving you the same content, I'm saying the same things.
What's wrong impression?
Absolutely, and for you, it's a connection breaker. Connection breaker. Same thing as on the screen on a virtual call, on a webinar, on a presentation. When we look at the screen, it's really, really difficult not to look at ourselves rather than the actual camera. It's so difficult, but you will benefit. People will have a stronger perception of you if you try to look at the camera as much as you can rather than looking at yourself.
Looking at yourself.
Yeah.
And tell me something else. Presentation slides are a big part of presenting usually. So do you have any tips on how to prepare your presentation? Of course, other than the obvious, don't put everything in text, etc. Do you have something that people can start applying right away?
Yeah, sure. Just so for me, a presentation is a slide deck, for example. What it does, it aids, it's a tool, and it just helps people to think more about the messages you're sharing, right? So a slideshow goes on, you're presenting, where do you want people to look? Where do you want people's attention? You want them on you. You want them on you as much as possible. The slide deck is just an aid. It just helps, and you can do a reminder, and you can do that really well naturally with images. They can conjure up ideas. They can get people. When an image goes on an image on a slide deck, a picture, a photograph, it's fantastic because what it does for the person looking at the image, their perception of that image, their idea of what that means is true for them. It's not me giving them something and I want them to think of that. They perceive it in their own idea of it, and that's great. Then I want people to look at me, listen to me, because I'm the focus of the presentation. When the focus of the presentation becomes the slide deck,
then they don't need you. They can read it by themselves.
Absolutely. And that's really a challenge, certainly with technical presentations where there's a lot of data to share. And that's really the art of making complex ideas and messages into really simple, clear, and messages with impact. That's the skill. And the more you do it, the more you get better at it.
That's great. Thank you, Peter. Dakle, u ovom videu smo pričali o tome kako prezentirati uživo. Dolje imate sve podatke gdje možete pronaći kontakt od Petera, a u idućem videu ćemo pričati o tome kako se pripremiti za virtualne prezentacije koje su danas veliki dio našeg života. Tako da svakako pogledajte i idući video i podijelite ga nekome kome bi mogao biti koristan. Hvala vam i vidimo se. Bok.